Tolomei. I'm going to let her introduce herself and go from there. Thank you.
Good morning. So my parents were from Germany, and a few years ago I said to my brother Frank, "We're first generation." He turned to me and he said, "No, we're not. We are immigrants." You see, I had temporarily forgotten that I was actually born in Canada. Slide. We only spent 4 years in Canada, long enough. My parents only spent 4 years in Canada, long enough to have 4 children, and that is where I was born. Slide, please. My parents first immigrated to Canada and then to California. This is how it happened. My father stuffed his VW Bug with all of our belongings, strapped the sofa to the top, and drove from Elliott Lake, Ontario, Canada, to Pacifica, California, just south of San Francisco. Meanwhile, my mother boarded a plane with 4 children, ages 3, 2, 1, and my brother Frank, who was only 3 months old at the time. That's us in Canada. I'm on the far left with my father, and on the far right is my grandmother, my Oma, from Germany. Next slide, please. Can you imagine boarding a plane with so many children? And my mother didn't even speak English at the time. Of course, I don't remember any of this. I was only 2 years old at the time, but there is a photo of my father standing proudly on the Golden Gate Bridge at sunset. He absolutely adored California. My mother, not so much. My parents were immigrants, but they were also refugees. Next slide. The place where they were born, once Germany, became Poland after World War II. And it's a trauma that I'm only now beginning to understand after both of their deaths. They had the misfortune of being on the losing side of history. That's my mother in the back, the tall one. There were, and all of her siblings, and my Oma in the middle. And I think this photo is about 1941 or so. There were stories that I heard from my mother about the Russians arriving on horses into their village to eject everyone, looting and pillaging the tiny town. But the saddest thing she told me was that her warm winter coat was stolen. And to me, that was the most heartbreaking. They lost everything, literally everything. Everyone was resettled to West Germany, part of a post-World War II diaspora that I'm sure you've heard of, and I'm certainly no expert of. I wish I had cared more about this history when they were both alive. And I feel a regret now. There's so many things I want to ask them. Next slide. This is a picture of my father's family, and my grandfather's on the far right, and my aunt, who is on the far left, just recently passed away at 89. So I also date this photo at about 1941. As I said, my father loved California, but my mother always missed Germany. She lamented not having any extended family support nearby, and I think she missed her family very much. She always said things were better in Germany. Kind of the opposite of my father. I myself didn't know my grandparents and extended family until I was a teenager and spent a summer in Germany. One of the best summers of my life. My Oma and Opa were very dear to me. I'm a naturalized US citizen now, and also a German citizen, and I relinquished my green card during the naturalization ceremony. I don't think I'm going to be deported anytime soon, but in peace, uncertain times, you never know. I'm actually a little afraid to leave the country right now. What if they don't let me back in? I did bring my mother's green card, which she carried until her death. She never did become a US citizen. It's kind of a long story. But I can't believe that permanent residents, green card holders, are now being threatened with deportation simply for exercising their rights guaranteed to them as permanent residents of this country. So all of us know people born in another country. They are part of our UU community. They are our neighbors. Immigrants connect with our UU values of justice, pluralism, and interconnectedness. Just like me, every immigrant has their own unique story. Immigrants walk among us, sometimes overtly and sometimes covertly. My dentist is from Jamaica. I've worked with people from Mongolia, Thailand, and Nigeria. 2 dudes from Honduras painted my house last summer. Immigrants are America's rocket fuel, powering our nation's unsurpassed economic and cultural achievements. That's a quote from the New York Times op-ed from January 12, 2025. Immigrants have propped us up this country in so many ways, but many are now threatened with deportation. Venezuelans, victims of an authoritarian regime, have been targeted for deportation and are already being deported to El Salvador without due process. Additionally, 240,000 Ukrainians are being threatened with the removal of their TPA status, temporary protected status. If we deport everyone, I have to ask, who's going to do what needs to get done around here? People are moving and migrating all over the world, not just here in the United States, but the truth is we desperately need migrants. Shrinking birth rates mean that workers are and will be needed everywhere. This is a global issue, a worldwide diaspora. I recommend a recent movie from the European perspective called The Green Border. It's a little hard to find, but well worth it. And by the way, my father worked in construction as a carpenter, and my mother was a domestic engineer, working inside the home to raise 8 children. Because their education was interrupted by the war, neither went beyond the 8th grade. They struggled, of course, and I didn't have an extravagant childhood, but my parents provided for us the best they could, and 5 of the 8 of us are college graduates. So what can we do? There are a number of resources. On the cover of the Order of Service is a copy of a red card, although it isn't red. You can download full sheets of these cards in almost 20 different languages at ilrc.org. I'm sorry, can you go forward a couple of slides? That's me in my Marcia Brady period. Okay, the ILRC is the Immigrant Legal Resource Center. And as I said, you can download full sheets of the red cards there in about 20 different languages. The cards are designed to fit in your wallet. So please feel free to carry them with you and distribute. We can be prepared and we can show solidarity when ICE comes to our community. As always, call your legislators, call the White House, flood the phones, let your voices be heard. Next slide. The American Friends Service Committee is a website that I recently just discovered. I learned about them after reading about a woman in Colorado who was recently deported after living in a church for several years. The website has a template that sends your message directly to Congress, among other resources, and I encourage you to check it out. Next slide. This website is based in the Quaker movement. Next slide. And as far as sanctuary goes, I'm going to pass it back to Francisco.
Thank you, Christina. As an immigrant myself, I did not want to speak on today's discussion about immigrants because I think that stereotypical immigrant in today's America is seen as a Spanish-speaking brown person from Latin America. Bringing awareness that immigrants include many who pass as typical Americans, such as Christina, she looks white to me, but anyway, is important, okay? It is important as it opens our worldview and helps us to again realize that unless you are from one of the native nations that were here before the arrivals of the Europeans, you or your family are immigrants. In other words, all of us are the others that the current US administration treats with impunity and disdain. I also told Christina that I would speak about sanctuary. Most all of you may know what is sanctuary or the sanctuary movement. We've gone through this back when Trump 1.0 occurred. Other members of our church here have spoken to me about wanting to become more active in this movement. I wish we could split ourselves into more people to allow us the time and ability, as well as to have the resources to be involved in this movement. Certainly, as Unitarian Universalists, we all have personal and spiritual reasons to want to be involved. Next slide. There it is. As it helps fulfill our 7 shared values: interdependence amongst all people, pluralism, we are different and yet the same, justice, goes without saying, generosity to all around us, equity, thinking that everyone is equal, and transformation, adapting to our changing world. It helps us do all of that. And of course, the final one that joins all of these is love. Loving our neighbor, loving ourselves. It's the way we do that. The UUA has several different resources available. Unfortunately, these are not current. To learn more, there is an article in the UUA that is written by Charles Stark in 2008 about how their UU congregation in Danbury, Connecticut joined the sanctuary movement. Although it was written back in 2008, I think it remains as relevant today. Another resource is www.uua.org. Immigration is a starting point of other resources that are kept by the UUA regarding sanctuary and immigration. And I think our congregation can use that as a source to begin. I did a lot of search and I came across different places and realized how hidden some of the information is, or how hard sometimes to find information may be. And I think this is because of our current state of fear, awareness. You know, do you really want to, if you're an immigrant who's here, let's say legally, do you really want to expose yourself? Do you want to try to call somebody and they say, yes, come on over, and it turns out that maybe the la migra, as we say in Spanish, Mexicans say that? No. So I think that part of that is it has to be underground. That's the way you keep yourself safe. And so it's why I think we're finding it somewhat hard to quickly see information that can be passed on. Now, I'll tell you this, I'll finish up with this real quick. The first sentence in English that I learned was, no hablo inglés. Okay? My parents, with their limited English, told us we have to learn that. I mean, they drilled it the first day we moved here. You have to say that so that nobody asks you anything else. Okay? So again, thankfully, I do hablo inglés. Okay? And thankfully, just like Christina's family, all except for my oldest brother, who's a failed high school and went as a truck driver, But anyway, he's a successful truck driver. The rest of us are college graduates also, the other six people. This is a call to action amongst the many in our society today, which I hope that our congregation will take seriously and take up. Thank you. Now, it is time for the offering.